what happens when something doesn't turn out right. It doesn't have to be a major tragedy. How do you deal with such issues when things just don't turn out the way you thought they ought to turn out? We sometimes perceive it's the end of the world. And then there's usually this wilderness phase that we struggle with, and everything seems disoriented, and we can't deal with it, and we can't function through it. And then we finally begin to work through some of those issues, get our feet back on firm ground again, and then finally we can make a new beginning. It happens every time someone goes through divorce. It happens when you get married. It happens when you found out you've got cancer. It happens during every circumstance you and I face in this life, and we have to learn how to go through that process and still survive without being bitter and angry on the other side. Now, a great example of this in the Bible is in the book of Genesis, chapter 37. Turn there with me. We're going to read verses 1 through verse 11 in just a moment. But when we have these unmet expectations, what do you and I do? How do we survive? How do we move forward? I wish there was a book. I wish there was just 2 or 3 steps. But I'm going to give you a couple of words in just a moment as to how to move forward in such things. But let me build it off of this story of a man named Joseph. Young man, chapter 37, verse 1. You found it? And ready with the word? Say amen. In Genesis 37 and verse 1, here's what it says. Now Jacob dwelt in the land where his father was a stranger, in the land of Canaan. This is the history of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brothers, and the lad was with the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought a bad report of them to his father. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children. That's a bad idea, by the way. Because he was the son of his old age, and also he made him a tunic of many colors. But when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and could not speak peaceably to him. Now Joseph had a dream, and he told it to his brothers, and they hated him even more. So he said to them, please hear this dream which I've dreamed. There we were, binding sheaves in the field. Then behold, my sheaf arose, and also stood upright. And indeed your sheaf stood all around and bowed down to my sheaf. And his brothers said to him, shall you indeed reign over us, or shall you indeed have dominion over us? So they hated him even more for his dream and for his words. Then he dreamed still another dream and told it to his brothers and said, look, I've dreamed another dream, and this time the sun, the moon, the 11 stars bowed down to me. So he told it to his father and his brothers, and his father rebuked him and said to him, what is this dream that you've dreamed? Shall your mother and I and your brothers indeed come to bow down to the earth before you? And his brothers envied him, but his father kept this matter in mind. If you continue to read through the book of Genesis, all the other chapters, the remaining chapter of this great book, chapter 37 through chapter 50, are devoted to the life of Joseph. From the time he was 17 years of age until the time that he died at 110 years of age, all of these pages are devoted to his life. You and I can read it in a few minutes, but it took a lot of years and a lot of time to work through those issues. Sometimes creates a deal of frustration for us when we can read such stories in the Bible and we see the end result and we think living through some of these circumstances fairly easily, but when you and I look at them day by day and we have to get up every morning and look at our life in the mirror and look in hindsight at where we've been and perhaps get with a little foresight, look at the direction we're going, life can at times get a little frustrating. And sometimes we messed up in marriage, sometimes with our kids, sometimes in our careers, and sometimes we didn't really mess up. Life just took completely different turns, and we don't know exactly what to do from this point forward. Well, what's the real key to being able to deal with these issues? There are really just 2 key words that I want to build everything off of this morning. And they're not going to be very profound, but they're very, very real. And it's the words learn and grow.